Yeah, so our prayer, as Bethany has said, for this chapel as well as yesterday's chapel has been that God would speak and that there would be rich ministry among students and that everyone here coming would just receive kingdom value. That's what we've been praying, just kingdom value. So we've had the chance to talk among ourselves now. Now we get the chance as student council just to kind of share from our hearts. We're each going to take a couple minutes, share a high point from our lives, a low point from our lives, and I always get nervous when they start laughing behind me. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But yeah, so we're going to do that. Then we're going to end off by praying together, and then we'll be on our way. So I'll invite Brooke to start off. Give her a hand, everybody.
No, me and Bethany were only laughing because I can't get distracted because last time I spoke for way too long. Like, there's a timer for me, like, in the back. Yeah, you guys can all look. And I didn't know that, so I'm, like, talking, and everyone's kind of, like, looking at me. I'm like, what? Anyways, so I'm going to get right into it. I want to talk about my first highlight, which was prison ministry. So I've been doing prison ministry for my internship. And one big highlight was actually my very first time going into the prison because it was, like, quite the new experience for me. So I'm just going to like walk you through it. So basically I go to this massive building. It's the Remand Center. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but you go into this building. I'm this joyful, excited volunteer. I'm going in like way too happy to be in such like a dreadful place. So I don't fit. I automatically do not fit in. And you go and you see like the security guards who are always like, most of the time like they're miserable and they're like not super happy. So I'm like, I'm here to volunteer. And they're like, ID. And you're like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, here. And they're like, what are you here for? And you're like, oh, like, I'm just here for like chapel. And like automatically I'm like, oh, okay, like match the vibe. You gotta like calm yourself down. So I go and I wait and I'm sitting there waiting for all the other volunteers to show up. It's my first time, so I have no idea what it's gonna look like. And these other volunteers, they come, they're like, so like, do you have anything prepared? I'm like, what? I'm like, do you have anything? I didn't even bring my Bible. I didn't know we were allowed to bring anything in. You're not allowed your phone. Like, you don't bring anything. So I'm freaking out. It's like, oh, no, don't worry. Like, we'll say something. I'm like, you could have clued me that like earlier. But anyway, so we go down to this chapel. Doors slam shut. Like, if you ever seen the movies, like, these doors are 600 pounds. Like, they are loud. It's scary. You go down, and there's, like, a room full of prisoners, just like the movies. Like, they are in orange jumpsuits. They have covered in tattoos. They are all men. So it's a little bit like, oh, holy smokes. Like, this is real life. I'm here. Anything could happen at this point. So what it basically looked like is we had worship. So this was really cool because you're in a room that's, like, barely a quarter of the size of this room. Like, it is small. So we're all close-knit. And you're with these prisoners, and you're singing worship music. Like, I don't know if you think, like, what you think is cool, but for me, this is, like, the epitome of what is cool in life. Because you're singing, like, 10,000 Reasons. Like, do you all know that song, 10,000 Reasons? If you don't, catch up. But no, like, so we're singing these songs, and I'm like, holy smokes, like, this is insane. And I'm in my head the whole time, I'm like, well, if I did say something, like, what would I say? And I'm like, well, I have absolutely no idea. These are prisoners. I have no idea to relate, no idea what they're going through. I can't pretend. But for some reason, this is going through my mind, like, what am I going to say, whatever. But I don't have any, like, I wasn't needed to say anything, so it didn't matter. So we go through the first chapel, and then we have one more chapel. So we do two. Same thing. We do all our worship, but then the chaplain is like, Brooke, like, what do you have to say? I was like, pardon? I was like, what do you mean? What do I have to say? So I'm like, I was like, why don't we sing like one more worship song, and then I'll say something, then we'll go. So we sing one more worship song. I'm like, Lord, now's the time to like start kicking in. Like, please, like, give me a little something to say here. And I go, and I'm like, absolutely nothing. Like, I was like, Jesus, like, take the wheel. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't. Like, I don't know what to say. Song's over. Nothing. But like everybody's looking at me, so I'm like, well, I have to say something. So I was like, this is like such a Holy Spirit moment for me because I'm not about to fake it. Like, for prisoners especially, like, they know when you're genuine and they know when you're faking it, and they know when, like, they see volunteers all the time. So there's nothing in me that could just be like, oh, like, Jesus loves you. And then, like, that just doesn't work. So it was just really, like, I don't remember everything that I said. It probably felt a lot longer than it was, but I remember just saying, like, hey, guys, like, I know it sounds cheesy, and I know I can't pretend to relate to you, but you need to know that, like, you are here for a reason. Like, you have a purpose, and Jesus, like, loves you so genuinely. And it, like, again, like, it probably felt like I was speaking for, like, 20 minutes. It was probably, like, 2. But that was such a highlight of my year. But it kind of leads me into my low light, and I might go, like, 1 minute over time. I hope that's okay. But my low light has been really, like, not being in control and not knowing what's ahead of me. I don't know about you guys, but like I love to be in control. I like to lead. I like to make decisions. I like to know what's ahead of me. I want to know all these little details, and I hate the uncertainty. And in my 4th year, you have like 1 million people every single day, no exaggeration, probably 1 million people every day being like, well, so like what's next? And I'm like, why don't you tell me? Because I don't know. So it's been such a challenge for me just to like understand that God does have a plan. But my eyes were really open the other day. I was going through the book of John for one of our assignments for Dr. Kienzler. And it was at the end of John, so Jesus had just died, and then Mary went to see the tomb, and the tomb was empty. So she's freaking out. She's like, how is this possible? Like, what's going on? Who do I tell? Where do I go? Like, where is Jesus? What do I do? So she's freaking out, but like Jesus is right here as she's freaking out, and she sees him. She's like, look, like, what do I do? She thinks he's like some gardener, or he's like some gardener, and he's like, what do I do? What's going on? And Jesus is standing there, like, he's like, Mary, like it's me. So this just really, like, it felt really personal as I was reading it, because I was like, holy smokes, like here I am freaking out about what's ahead, freaking out about graduation, about marks, about classes, about internship, about job opportunities, freaking out because I'm like, well, what's ahead? And the Lord's just looking at me. He's like, Brooke, like, you really think I'm going to leave you after this long? So I don't know what year you're in or what's ahead, or if you like worry about this kind of stuff, because I've stressed about this for quite some time. But I hope you know that like Jesus has brought you this far, and we just need to focus on him and his guidance and continue to trust in him. So that's what I've learned this year. That's me.
All right, it's my turn. Hi, my name's Favor, and I'm the Community Life Coordinator for Student Council. So yeah, my highlight for this short little talk here was actually getting asked to be on the Student Council. Graham asked me at the end of August last year. It was summer. I was like working on a landscaping job, really bored out of my mind, and he's like, hey, do you want to be the Community Life Leader for Student Council? And I was like, yes? Like, I was nervous, excited. I don't know if you have that feeling where you were really excited to do something, but you're not sure if you're going to be able to do it. Like, you're not sure you're strong enough or you're ready to do that challenge. But I didn't want to turn it down, and so I said yes. And now I'm on Student Council. I have a team that works with me, the Community Life Committee, Melody's on it, and some other students, and they're all amazing. And it's been a great opportunity so far. I've gotten to work with the rest of Student Council, and they're all great people. You should get to know them. And the things that we've done as a Student Council have surpassed my expectations. I think about like, what was it called? Fusion and the Christmas celebration. Those were both huge highlights. I think after the Christmas celebration, I went home and I was just like so excited. I didn't know what to do with it. So I started an audio recording. I was like, I just had a great time today. You know, Christmas celebration was so much fun. And so, yeah, Student Council was great. And that's kind of been my highlight for this year. And so I want to take you back to that moment where it kind of flipped. Because for me, like, life is not just high events and then low events. They usually transition into one another. And so after Fusion had happened, we got our community life team together, and we're having like our first meetings. We're getting really excited to, you know, plan our first events. What's going to be our next big thing after Fusion? And so we had this plan for a hangout, the Horlack Park Hangout, and we were super excited about it. It was going to be a ton of fun. And back then, the restrictions were still a little looser, so we were really excited to capitalize on them. And then the restrictions tightened, and we had to hang the plan. We couldn't do the hangout anymore. And that sucked, to put it simply. And I remember it was such emotional whiplash, because literally the day before, Graham and I were putting up posters in the pedway to, like, you know, get as much attention, as many eyes on this as we could so that people would come. Yeah, I don't know, did any of you guys see that? Yeah, the entire pedway was just filled to the wall was filled with posters. And then the next morning, I get, like, Bethany puts this message in the group chat. She's like, sad times, and we're like, what's going on, what's going on? And all of a sudden I'm scrambling. I'm like, oh no, we need to get all those posters down. Otherwise people are gonna think there's something happening today that's not happening. And I remember that same day too, we still had a meeting, so we all met together. And I was like, you know what, it's not a big deal. You know, our event got canceled. We'll do another one, it'll be fine. But then when I was actually in the room with the rest of our team, I was like, this sucks. And it took the wind out of my sails just to think about, what's to stop any other event we do from getting canceled, And like, what are we going to be able to do? Even now, like with the restrictions lifted and everyone's getting super excited, I still kind of get nervous from time to time. Like, will we be able to do what we want to do and what God has called us to do? So through this high and this low experience, I've learned two lessons, or I'm learning two lessons, because you don't just learn these lessons once. The first is to say yes to God. When Graham called me in the summer, I could have let that anxiety of failure or the fear of failure take over and just say no to the opportunity. Like, I just need to enjoy my fourth year, focus on my studies, and dip. But I knew that it would be so much better if I said yes to what God was calling me to. And so the first thing is to say yes to God. How much time do I have left? Okay, I gotta go fast. Say yes to God. And now this is the easier of the two lessons, because if you're in that moment and you need to make that decision, you can kind of pep yourself up and be like, okay, I just need to say yes to God. I'm gonna call the phone. I'm gonna take that opportunity. I'm gonna say yes to God. But the next step is a little harder, and that is to trust God with the outcome. Once you've said yes to God, once you've come to Vanguard, once you've taken that ministry position, you have to trust him with what happens next, because things don't always go as planned, right? And when you trust God with the outcome, he'll turn your setbacks into advantages, and he'll turn your losses into lessons. He's going to redeem all of it, right? So those are my two lessons I wanted to share with you today. Say yes to God and trust him with the outcome. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Alannah. Yeah, hi. So unlike most of these guys, I couldn't pinpoint a specific highlight and lowlight of this year, because it's just been so up and down. Because this year, I completely overcommitted myself. I keep saying yes to things, and I really thought that I could handle all of it. I came into the school year feeling really empowered. A few doors had opened for me in the summer, and I was genuinely excited by all the opportunities that were coming. As the school year began, doors just kept opening, and I just wanted to walk into all of them. I started off the school year with a job right away, a job that I was really excited about. It was just exactly what I was looking for a job during the school year. But this job ended up taking up most of my Saturdays and Sundays, which left me with no days to rest and little time to do homework. I also got the opportunity to do a more intensive practicum this year, and it gave me more exposure to different areas of ministry that I was really excited about. But these ministry opportunities caused me to give up more evenings of my week and more of my weekends, which left even less time to rest and do schoolwork, and even student council. This has been an amazing opportunity. Working with this team has really been a blessing. I could tell right from the start that I was going to enjoy it just because of these amazing people that I get to work with. And if you haven't gone to get to know these guys, you probably should. They're all pretty great. But all these responsibilities that student council brought with it added more and more things into my schedule that I was really bad at managing and fitting in well. And with everything going on, there's still school to worry about. I still had classes to attend, and I still had assignments to do. And so I had to wrestle with what I would make my top priority and then what I would make my bottom priority, which left school at the bottom. Because anything else I would bail on, it would affect other people, and I would let other people down. But if I bail on school obligations, then I'm only letting myself down. So it was the easiest thing for me to neglect. And every week there's always those little things that come in that we didn't plan for ahead of time, that end up messing with our schedule and just make our to-do list longer and longer. So all of this was super difficult for me to balance. I wasn't prepared for how much I would take on this year. I jumped in head first with no time to process anything. But what has made it even more difficult is that I have enjoyed all of it. Because it's really easy for us to say no to things that we don't want to do, but it's so hard to say no to things that we really want to do. So I nearly burnt myself out, but I'm glad I did it. Because how are we supposed to know what our limits are if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to test the waters a little bit? So I'm not in any way telling you to override your schedule and burn yourself out. But what I am saying is that in order you to know what your max capacity is, you might need to learn a little bit and give yourself that chance to figure it out. So throughout this school year and for this final stretch, I know that I still have a lot on my plate, and it is just going to pick up from here. But I know that through it all, God has been here right with me, guiding my steps. This year, when I've been at my busiest and overwhelmed by all my responsibilities, God has continued to carry me through. I know and trust that God will never give me more than I can handle, and I also know that there are seasons in my life where I have to experience certain things in order to learn and grow from them. So I'm grateful that I'm learning this lesson now, so hopefully in the future I won't make the same mistakes, and I might be able to set better boundaries for myself. I know that as I finish this year, I will be stronger because of what I went through, and I'm grateful for every opportunity that God has given me along the way. So with this in mind, I encourage you guys in whatever season in life you're in, that you will just see how God is using it for His glory and how you can learn and grow from it.
Okay. Hi, guys. How are you feeling so far? Good stuff. Yesterday, I was telling everyone I burnt my hand really bad, and I had this nasty blister, but it's kind of gone away, which is like, it looks better, right? Pass around? Yeah, it was really gross yesterday. And I was saying if anyone likes gross things, they can come see me after the service, but it's kind of gone now, so you can still come see me if you want. So my kind of low and high point happened in like the span of 6 weeks last year. I was actually talking to someone before this during our turn to talk who kind of had the same experience as me, which I thought was kind of cool. So I just want to share. In May of last year, I went through a pretty bad breakup, and it was very unexpected. I went to church one day, and by the time I came home in the afternoon, I was single. And I didn't expect it. I didn't want it. I was mad at God. I was frustrated. I was confused. And I spent 2 weeks in my bed. And yeah, it was really, really tough. And I just want to say before I tell more of my story that if you've gone through that, and I'm just like so sorry, because I didn't even realize how much pain it would be for me, or any heartbreak you've gone through. Like, I'm so sorry. That if you want someone to pray with, like, I would love to do that with you. But anyways, about 2 weeks had passed. I was back at work. Luckily, my bosses were these really nice Christian people, so they gave me a bunch of time off to, like, you know, deal with my emotions. And this one day I was back at work, and I was just like zoning out, looking out the window onto 109th in Edmonton. And I was just like rolling these cinnamon buns, and I just heard God say, go to BC. And I don't really audibly hear God's voice very often. So I know it's definitely the Holy Spirit, because I was like, whoa, wait, what do you mean go to BC? Like British Columbia? Yes, go to BC. And I was like, okay. So I'm just like standing there rolling the cinnamon buns, and I'm like, hey, think about this, Colette, like logistically, how could this work? And I just like knew in that moment, I couldn't think about it that way. I just needed to trust God and go. So by the end of the day, I had talked to my bosses, and I'd given them my 2 weeks notice. And 2 weeks later, I was in BC. I moved there, didn't have a job. I had a place to stay, luckily, but I was just like trusting God that He would do something. So I went. And I just have to say it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I think it's because I didn't think about it, I just did it. I just heard from God, and I just ran with it. And yeah, so while I was there, I didn't just heal from that heartbreak, but God really just like opened the hood and just showed me all my engine problems, showed me all the areas of my heart that I had just neglected for years. I read this really amazing book called Captivating, and it just talks all about the feminine heart, and it seriously just totally changed my perspective and how God sees my heart. And I don't want to say that it was easy for me to get over that relationship, or that healing happened really quick, but it was definitely a supernatural thing from God that He healed me while I was there. I was only there for 6 weeks, and when I came home, I had friends telling me I was a different person. They didn't recognize me, like just in the way I acted and the way I spoke. And that is just God. That was not my own doing. It was just like me with open hands saying, like, God, I need you because I can't do this on my own. And I just wanted to say to you guys, maybe you've gone through a breakup, maybe you haven't. Maybe you've gone through really, really just painful things in life, whatever. I know every person in this room has probably gone through something that has broken their heart in some way. That for me, it was my greatest heartbreak that brought my greatest healing. And I believe that for you too, that maybe you haven't experienced that healing yet. Maybe you're like, I don't think God can supernaturally heal me in that way, but I just want you to know that he can. Yeah, and don't just limit God to one aspect of your life or one part of your heart, because God actually like came in and did heart surgery on me. And I just remember this one day, I was alone all morning. I was living with my friend and we worked at the same place, but sometimes she would work the morning shift, so I'd be alone until like 2 o'clock at the cabin. And yeah, I just had this thought of when Jesus goes to see Lazarus and he's dead, and he's Jesus, so he knows that Lazarus was going to die. He also knows that he's going to raise him to life because he's Jesus. But Jesus doesn't neglect the grief that he feels. He gets down on his knees and he weeps. And I just think that's a beautiful picture of who God is and who Jesus is in our grief, that he doesn't just overlook it. He doesn't just say like, oh, you'll get through it. Like, don't worry about it. You know, I'm good. Like, you know, I turn all things for good. He does those things, but I don't think that he just neglects our grief or neglects us in our grief. And I just had this beautiful moment with Jesus where he just came and put his hand on my shoulder and wept with me because he knew my pain was real and he wanted to walk me through that and walk me out of it. So, yeah, I just encourage you today that your greatest healing can come from your greatest heartbreak. Wow, I was right on the time. Sheesh.
This is so life-giving to me to hear all of these stories, even for the second time through. Like, I love all these people. They've said it before, but these are gems right here. Like, these people are good people, and you would do well to get to know at least one of them. Anyway, I'm Bethany. I am the Student Council Vice President. 2 things that are important to the story. I am third-year pastoral with a minor in PCC, and that minor comes into play in this story. And I'm pregnant, if that wasn't already obvious. So in terms of like highs and lows and what God taught me, I was saying earlier in Turn and Talk, my highs and lows have kind of been like this my whole year. And you'll be able to pick out what the high points and what the low points are, but I'm just going to tell you what God taught me. So in September, I had just gotten married. I got married in July. And so I came back and I was kind of like, yep. But I was at school, I'm like flashing the second ring around. I'm like, yeah, guys, it's real, yeah. But I'm walking around and I'm just stressed out of my mind. I'm like, okay, I am working almost full time. I am like, it's still COVID stuff. I'm on student council. I had done a little bit of overcommitting, and I was just getting really burnt out because then I realized, okay, being married means finances. I have to focus on feeding myself, paying rent at this place that's higher than I've ever done, and I live with somebody who eats twice as much as me, and lots to consider, and it was a blast to figure it out. But then I felt like God said, quit your job. I was like, oh, no thank you. Nope, I've had a job since I was 16. I've been working since I was able to, and I've never not had the ability to provide for myself. Also important. So God was like, yeah, quit your job. And then he started like pressing it. It was kind of like that thorn in my side. And he was like, yeah, quit your job because it's making you miserable. And I'm asking you to trust me. And you'll be less miserable if you trust me. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And then October rolls around and we find out we're expecting our baby girl this June. And it was like totally shocking. I didn't have an angel come tell me and prepare me before that. Like, this was not the Virgin Mary moment. This was a pregnancy test on a Monday morning at 7 a.m. And absolutely nuts. But I find out that I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, cool. This is awesome. And I hid it because I didn't want to be that girl. I'm like, I'm still flashing my ring. Like, look at this. And I'm just walking around sick as a dog. God asked me to quit my job. So then I was like, okay, I give up. I quit my job by the end of November, and things just started falling into place like what God had said. And since I got pregnant, I felt like God had invited me into this really sacred space of understanding his heart as a father. And I saw for the first time, even though she was a little poppy seed at the time, he's like, that's how I love you. Overwhelming. Like, honestly, the deepest, like, I cried a lot in class, and Dr. Kath knows that. Like, I went through some stuff in first semester. That's where the minor comes in, because take some PCC classes, you won't regret it. And God just showed me his love for me and was convicting me to have hope and to not be discouraged and to not be dragged down by these things. And then Christmas came, and from the Kahoot, you guys know I'm from Ontario. So my husband and I go to Winnipeg to visit his family for Christmas, and we get COVID. So we come back to Edmonton where my parents are because they live in Ontario. So they were visiting for Christmas, and I couldn't see them. Greatest heartbreak. But yet I was hopeful. Like, God had convicted me so hard to have hope in that moment, to say, like, no, I am your hope even when you have this disappointment. And I've never been able to say that before, that I was still hopeful and I still trusted God when I had the greatest disappointments. And then in January, my church started walking through the book of Romans again. And oh my goodness, guys, like, dig into that. Because in the first couple chapters, Paul talks about sin, and then God started teaching me a little bit more about his holiness. And so when God was talking about, or like Paul's talking about sin, God's poking at sin in my life. And not like top 3 sins everybody agrees are bad. Like, hey, you're feeling a little bitter today. Or, hey, you didn't spend time with me today. Like the little things that matter, right? And I started to get into this place where that sin, God just kept pushing on, and he kept saying, the greater your sin, the more unfair my love is for you. And it's a tension to rest in that God's love is so unfair. And I started to realize, I'm like, I don't deserve that. Knowing what I know, I would not be allowed to be in the presence of God. But then he reminded me of the Father's love and what he had taught me in first semester. And he said, yeah, your sin is gross. It sucks. It's bad. But I'm inviting you in, and I'm drawing you close. Nothing that you can do will bring you close to me except me drawing you closer. And so that's what God taught me, is that, like, the tension is my sin sucks. And the deeper I go into that, though, God's love is better. And the more I look at God's love, the greater my sin. But it brought this profound, like, deep realization of, okay, God, you're worth everything. Because I don't deserve the fact that you gave me this beautiful baby girl to call my own. I don't deserve this awesome husband and relationship. I don't deserve to be on student council and serve the way that I'm serving. I don't deserve any of what you've given me. So you can have it all because you still whisper to me and you call me beloved. And so I just want to invite you guys into that as well. I know it seems scary, but dig into your sin, because God's love is so much greater than we could ever imagine.
Oh, man. Bringing it home. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Graham. I do get to be student council president. You might know me as the guy who sings in the hallways, or for some reason wears his t-shirts tucked in sometimes. This has, certainly been the busiest year of my whole life, the most responsibility God has ever given to me. And so with that, I can't quite pinpoint one highlight or low light, but I have a few. So in terms of high points, I mean, getting to serve with these amazing folks, getting to do things like fusion, chapels, shekels, awesome stuff. Getting to date for the first time in my life. The girl that I have had a crush on since first year. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and then just kind of experiencing a real sense of clarity and calling. God's just kind of settled me into just that position of shepherd, and it's a good thing, and he's brought it in his good timing. In terms of low points, again, a variety, even talking in the chairs here about January when everything went online. That was tough. That was tough for me. I know it was tough for a lot of us. Another low light. If you're seeing me shake, I'm okay. Trust me. But yeah. Just experiencing just the anxieties of leadership and the insecurities of leadership. I was even telling my team, our past meeting on Monday, I just came in and said, guys, I'm just insecure today. I'm just been feeling nervous about this meeting. That's a humbling thing, but to have my team pray for me and just be gracious for me, that's been amazing. Yeah. And then sin. Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. It's frustrating. I know, I think we can all relate to that. Boy, just why can't I not do this? Why can't I not be like this? It's just kind of low points that just pervade throughout the year, throughout the semester. But there's one text that I'd like to end us off with today. We're going to wrap up real quick. I know that we have classes. I have a class after this, so it's extra pressure on me to do this quick, but so Jeremiah 17, verses 7 and 8 says this. Oh, come on. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. And I know we've heard on the stage here, I imagine you talked about it amongst each other, seasons of sunshine and brightness where as a tree we're just flourishing. Times of heat and drought where it's uncomfortable and it sucks. Times of storm where the wind is blowing and our dead branches, our dead growth is shaking off and it hurts. But through all of that, blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, because they are like a tree that sends out its roots by the water, and that stream does not run dry. It is a constant source of life. What happens beneath the surface doesn't have to change with things happening above the surface. And we've seen that, the results of that in this whole room today. We're all living examples of that. So I want to end on that note. I'm going to invite my student council to come, and we're just going to pray together. It's 12:32. It's been an interesting year. This semester, we've gone through the whole gamut of everything. We've had online in January now to sitting amongst each other without masks. But through that all, it's just been a real privilege and responsibility for us to serve this community as student council. We've done our best in God's will, and we've just trusted you guys and trusted ourselves to his care, because he is the best shepherd.